Annie here with Century 21 Wright and Associates. I'm here today with Kat Jerger from Academy Mortgage.
Hi guys.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the pre-approval process.
Yep.
What it is, what to expect, and kind of when to start that process.
Absolutely.
We have found that a lot of clients have a lot of questions about this and are kind of really intimidated about what pre-approval is. So Kat is here.
That's me, I'm the lender.
She's the expert. She and I work together really closely when we work with clients. Kind of my job is to help you find the house, get it under contract, do all of the negotiations, where Kat's your expert on financing, how much it's going to cost, what you can afford. And so you really need someone who can do both parts of that. And that's why we work together. Yeah, exactly. So, Kat, what does it mean to get pre-approved?
So getting a pre-approval means essentially that the lender has told you, or I've told you, exactly how much you qualify for. So why it's important to do it prior to even home shopping is it lets you know, your budget and where to be looking. So the biggest thing I see on the lending side with our clients is the correlation or discorrelation between purchase price and monthly payment. So we can tell you like a max amount that you can qualify for, but the more important figure in that is what do you want to pay per month, right? Like what are you comfortable with paying? And so it's really important to meet with a lender prior to Annie going out and showing you houses, because then she can adequately show you what houses are in your range and where you should be looking.
That's awesome. So if someone's thinking about getting a pre-approved, what does that process look like?
Yep, so it's really simple. I think people get a little bit nervous on the pre-approval and it feels very formal of the term filling out an application and they feel like they're tied to something, but you're not. It's more about just creating a plan for you and being able to understand kind of your budget and where you want to buy. So pre-approval starts with an application. It's the same application no matter where you go. In mortgage terms, we call it a 1003. And it records your income, assets, and liabilities. So those are the three factors. There's actually 4 quadrants of a loan that we look at for your pre-approval. So income, assets, liabilities, and then property would be your 4th one. So Annie will find the 4th quadrant for you. And it just gives us an idea of your financial scenario and what you qualify for. So we look at what's coming in, essentially, and then what's going out, and how much you can afford.
That's awesome. So one question that I get a lot is, people are maybe thinking about it, but they're like, I'm not ready, for 6 months or a year. Should I really even talk to someone about pre-approval right now?
And we hear that all the time, is someone's not ready and they want to wait to get pre-approved until they find the house. And I can tell you, A, that doesn't quite make sense because you want to be pre-approved before you're even shopping for houses. And then B, we like to get you ready before you're actually ready. And why we do that is I, as a lender, kind of go the extra mile and we do a credit analysis on all of our clients as soon as we pull their credit, because we want to make sure, like, we know that there's certain tiers in interest rate pricing and mortgage insurance pricing. And so if you're at like a 680 right now and you're not ready to buy for 6 months or a year, we can give you a plan. So in that 6 months or a year, you're getting like the optimal loan scenario and the best pricing for you. Right?
Yeah.
And you get to create a plan of, all right, maybe if we're not comfortable with that, do we need to save a little bit more? Do we need to create a budget? How comfortable can we practice, having a payment of $2,000 a month versus our $1,500 now? And are we comfortable with that? So it just lets you be prepared so that when you are ready to make the offer, you can.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I always like to say too is that, my job when we find your dream house is to put in that really strong offer. And part of the offer is submitting that pre-approval letter. And especially in today's market, sellers oftentimes are receiving multiple offers. So if we don't have our pre-approval letter ready yet, the sellers are going to go with another buyer who's further along in that process. So the last thing you want is to find the perfect house at the perfect budget and then just find out that now we're kind of behind the game.
I always compare it to like window shopping. If you were to go to the mall and you're just window shopping and having fun for the day, and you leave your wallet at home, right? Because you're not going to buy anything. And that's what we hear from a lot of buyers going to open houses, is they're just out there looking today and they're not ready for another 6 months or a year. But if you find that like one thing that you have to have and you absolutely fall in love with it, if you don't have your wallet, you can't buy it, right? Like, and you have to go back home, just like going back and getting a pre-approval, and then you have to go back to the mall or back to the house and submit the offer once you've gotten everything taken care of, and it might not be there, like someone else bought it. And we're in such a competitive market right now that realistically, like, you shouldn't be out shopping or looking at houses without that letter in hand.
That is such a great analogy. I think that really, really nails it on the head. So one other thing that I hear a lot of times of clients is that they're a little bit afraid about getting their credit pulled.
Yes, I hear that all the time.
So can you talk to us a little bit about, whether that's a legitimate concern?
Yeah. No, you got to get your credit pulled to be able to figure out what you qualify for. That's how we get all of your liabilities. We figure out your credit score. That's how your pricing is based off of. So it's a very important thing within the pre-approval process. But also, when you get your credit pulled, it affects differently when you're getting a mortgage versus if you're getting like credit cards. So I think that's where the fear comes from, of people are worried about getting their credit pulled too early, because when you apply for credit cards, it often affects your credit score. But it's a different type of debt, so it's seen different by the credit reporting agencies. So a mortgage is an installment loan, and that type of debt, the balance always goes down, right? You pay your mortgage, the payment doesn't change, and your balance is always going down. Well, when you're pulling for a credit card, that is a revolving account, and the balance trend on those always goes up. So we see it all the time with most consumers, right? Like, charge on their accounts, and rather than paying it off every month, it's common that the balance stays or it grows. So it affects it differently. There's also the factor of, if you're applying for 3 different credit cards, you could be getting all 3 cards, right? So credit reporting agencies take that into account because that's 3 new debts that you could have. Whereas if you applied with 3 different lenders, you're probably not getting 3 different mortgages, and they're smart enough to understand that. So
that is super important. I actually didn't know that, and so that's great, because I can definitely help my clients understand that as well. Because that, it is a big deal to kind of think about, what the impact is on your credit score.
It's very minimal. I've probably pulled thousands at this point, and I've seen it maybe a point or 2, and that's even with repulls. So it doesn't affect yours very much. And then, like I said, we run a credit analysis, so we can figure out if you're at a 680 and we can get you to a 700 and get you better pricing, then that's how we do that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have any other kind of tips for people as they're thinking about this process?
My biggest tip is to do it ahead of time. So get a pre-approval and meet with a lender before you're ready. I think a lot of people get hesitant because they feel like it's too soon. A, part of it is credit. B, is they don't feel ready, or they think their credit is terrible. But really doing it before you're ready, it just makes us be able to create a plan. And it costs you nothing, right? Like, we don't get paid as lenders until your loan actually closes on a house. So all we're doing is advising you and saying, okay, if we're at this scenario now, this is what you're qualified for. So we can create a plan if you want to get qualified to this, or, you can start shopping in this realm, but it doesn't mean because you're pre-approved that you go and make an offer the next day, right? It could be 6 months, it can be a year. I've worked with clients as long as 3 years before they actually pull the trigger and they're ready. So
yeah, that's wonderful. And I just kind of want to piggyback on that, because a lot of times when I do my kind of initial phone calls or initial screenings with clients and we talk about the process, I always encourage them, if they haven't gotten pre-approved, that they should start that process. One of the things that Kat and I are here for is to be your advisors and really help you meet your goals and your needs. And so, one of the things that I do a lot is to kind of talk about timelines, whether you're ready to buy because your lease is up in 3 months, or whether it's just kind of starting that process. And by knowing where your financials are at, it really helps us serve you best, because if it really sounds like, hey, 6 months is really kind of our timeline, then we're not going to go out and start looking at houses right now every single weekend or anything like that. But if it sounds like, hey, we're ready, then let's go ahead and utilize the tools that we have. And so really getting that picture as soon as possible helps us meet your needs the best way we can.
We're in the relationship type of business, so we would never push a client into something before they're ready. So getting them pre-approved doesn't mean that we're like, all right, let's go make an offer tomorrow. You know what I mean? We want our clients for life, so we want to do their first house and their second house, and their daughter or son's house. That's just kind of who we are as people and why we got into this business. So for us, it's all about planning and advising you and just making sure that you're in the best scenario, because the better care we take of you, we know the more likely you're more likely you are to come back to us for long term.
Yeah, and I would say, kind of the final note on that is that getting pre-approved is just a sense of how much you can spend. If we go back to that window shopping example, you know, maybe you have a credit card and you can buy that $100 purse or whatever,
Yeah.
but you're not obligated to buy that high-end piece. And, you know, that's where that financial piece comes in hand, but then that's where I step in and we find out kind of what makes sense for your day-to-day needs. But you just want to be able to know kind of what the maximum amount that you can spend is.
Max amount, and most importantly, what you're comfortable with. Just
Yeah.
like what I have to say. So there's no fee associated with it. It's just an advisor meeting with us. And like I said, you're not even into a fee within the loan until you're actually in contract and ordering appraisal. And we're not paid until your loan closes. So it's just a consultation and lets you know, kind of create a plan and on track to homeownership. Whether
Yeah.
it's 6 months, year, 2 years, we got you.
Exactly. Well, I really hope that this kind of helped clear up a lot of questions that people have had and makes the pre-approval process seem a little bit less intimidating. Because, you know, we find that the better prepared you guys are, the easier the process is and the more enjoyable it is. And really at the end of the day, then you kind of get to meet your goals.
And it's not as big of a process, I think, as people think. Being pre-approved and filling out an application feels like such an official thing. We have an app that we send to your phone, and you can do an application in 10 minutes, right? Like, it's very simple. And then we request the according documentation, which some of it is available instantly online by third-party servicers of your HR. So it's easy. You can do it in like 30 minutes.
That's awesome. So on your next lunch break,
Yeah.
you could totally find
On your
out
phone. Yeah.
exactly how much you could qualify for your next home.
Yep. It's simple. So
Awesome.
no excuses not to be pre-approved.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy day, Kat, to kind of explain that process and why it's so important and really especially as you're starting this process.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any more questions or you're curious about getting pre-approved or what the process looks like and you want a little more in-depth detail, call or message us and both of us are happy to advise you.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.